Welcome back to the Brand Ambassador Series. Today we're staying in the US and this is with George Dickel. Well, more exactly, this is with Doug Kragel. Doug, thanks a lot for being here.
It's a pleasure. I'm really excited.
It's exciting because George Dickel is this other big guy from Tennessee. So you see, you shouldn't believe that all good whiskey comes from Kentucky. It's not true.
No.
Because it's been happening for a while already. Tennessee is an amazing source of great spirits, mostly whiskey. There are secrets to it, and hopefully you're here to tell us a bit about that. Everybody knows George Dickel because a couple of years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, there was a shortage.
Yes, there was.
And our customers were desperate. They didn't know what to do, but so now they can be happy.
Yes, that was a shortage of our number 8 brand as well, which was the core of the brand.
Now, what's happening with George Dickel? Where is it? Why? How?
Well, right now what's happening with George Dickel is that it's come back to the point where people are really starting to discover North American whiskey. And we love that as a brand because we are a brand with a lot of heritage. We've been around for a long time, but we're still a very small brand in the fact that we pride ourselves on being extremely handcrafted. Mm-hmm. We've only got 25 guys down at our distillery doing the whole thing, and yet we can still make the production to meet the needs of the consumers. We've got no computers running any of our distillation process, which is one of those points that really hits home with people when they're looking for something that can be to reach everyone, but not necessarily so small batch that you can't find it anywhere. Right. So even though there was a little bit of a shortage on the number 8, it's back, it's ready to go, and it's everything that you love with the brand, and it's everything that George Dickel originally intended with the brand.
How did it start?
George Dickel actually started in, George Dickel is a man. He immigrated to the United States in the Nashville area about 1850. That's when he actually showed up on tax books. That's where they first found out about him. Now, it's a little allure because nobody has an actual picture of George. We have renderings, but we never got an actual photograph of him. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons is because he actually died very young. He got in a horse accident and died, and that's actually when the brand was named George Dickel. Originally, it's down in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and the area was called Cascade Hollow. Mm-hmm. So originally, it was Cascade Whiskey. That was what he got into as a project when he realizes that he wanted to be a part of what was happening down in Tennessee and in that area of the country. So when he passed away, they named it after him in commemoration. Now, the George Dickel brand always stayed true to those roots from the beginning. We were in great production until Prohibition hit in Tennessee. Now, as you may know or may not know, Tennessee actually started Prohibition a little bit earlier than the rest of the country. We started in 1911. So when they shut us down, they didn't actually just shut us down, they tore us down to the ground, mm-hmm. which was very difficult then to really revitalize the brand. So it didn't come back until 1959. Wow. But when we did it in 1959, we did it right, and we're still doing it the same way, which really is a testament to the brand and the fact that technology is fantastic for whiskey. It's done great things, but at the same time, we figured it out then, so there's no need to kind of advance it any farther because we knew what we were doing and we did it right, so we might as well stick to it. We made great whiskey then and we're still making great whiskey now.
But why exactly?
Why exactly is it great whiskey?
Why is it that good? You know, people think it's Tennessee whiskey, okay, fine, they assimilate to another big name and they tend to not give it the respect that it should be given to.
That's true. I mean, Tennessee whiskey is usually kind of in the background to Kentucky bourbons and other bourbons in the area. But really, when you look at Tennessee whiskey, we're following all the same regulations as bourbons are. We're still 52% corn. We're still doing that limestone and rich water. And we're still doing over 2 years in new American charred oak barrels. Mm-hmm. But what we add to it, which was a tradition to Tennessee whiskey, is things like we're a sour mash. Not everyone in Kentucky, you find a lot of straight bourbons in Kentucky, but we're actually doing that sour mash process where we're taking some of the backset, as they call it, from the last mash, we're mixing it into the next product. Mm-hmm. And what that's really doing is that's allowing to keep consistency, mm-hmm. and it also helps activate the yeast when you first start doing the process. So when you're adding the yeast to the mash, having that already active backset is allowing it to really go crazy, and it really gets started in a good way. Also, the other thing that sets us apart is what's called the Lincoln County process. Right. So the Lincoln County process is a filtration process through charcoal. Now, we source all of our own Tennessee sugar maple, we dry it on site, and we burn it on site. It's fantastic to see. Takes about 6 hours, maybe more. I got a chance to check it out and it was awesome. And then we're drying it out for a year. So it's very dry, it's very brittle, but it really gives that smooth flavor. Now, the thing that sets us apart from any other Tennessee whiskey that's doing that Lincoln County process is when George Dickel first started distilling, he found that the product that he distilled was better in the winter. That's when he found that he liked his whiskey best.
Okay.
So what we've done is we've taken that tradition, and every time we filter it through the charcoal, we're actually chilling it down to 40 degrees when we take it down through the charcoal. And that allows more impurities to come out of the whiskey and create a smoother feel. That's why they call it, and they've always called it, Tennessee's finest sipping whiskey. Because it's that finish, that light and easy finish that makes it just very easy to sip.
So it removes some of the bad stuff from the fermentation, from the distillation?
From the distillate, after the distillate. So it's removing it from the distillate before we put it in the barrels.
Right.
Now when we do that, if you ever get a chance to check it out, I mean it's over 10 feet of charcoal, and we're actually filtering it through. And when it comes in through an opening only about the size of a pencil, very small, and it allows for a very slow process. It takes about 8 days to make it, the product to make it all the way down through. Now, it's not only going through charcoal, we actually have virgin sheep's wool blankets on top and on bottom of that charcoal process. And what that does is it allows it to get a little bit slower. It's another filtration process to really get the product as pure as possible. So when it goes in the top and it comes out the bottom, what we're doing is we're doing a full immersion process as well. So instead of, if you imagine this vat and you have the sheep's wool on the top and you have it on the bottom and the product's coming in through it, as opposed to kind of a trickle down process where liquid is going to find the path of least resistance always. So it's going to eventually naturally erode that charcoal as it goes through if it constantly goes through the same spot. So if you have it fully immersed as it filters through and you allow, you know, a quart of liquid to come in the top, a quart's going to come out the bottom, it allows to maximize the surface area of the charcoal, creating as smooth a whiskey as you can find.
But then, have you tried to not apply this Lincoln County process? Whiskey, or everything goes through that? Everything
goes through that. The greatest thing about all of our brands is that this is all the same mash bill. It's all the same distillate. We only do one run. We do 2 runs a day, but we only do one product off our still. So what that does is allows the consumer and anyone that wants to try our whiskey to see what happens to the product on the journey of just age. The only other variable is our proof. So it's always going through this Lincoln County process. We put it in our barrels and then we store it for whatever age we think is appropriate for the mark, and this is the result.
But Doug, you're saying it's the same of the still,
yes,
right? So the wood will apply differences to the whiskey.
Correct.
But before that, in the mash bill, what are we playing with? Is it more like 52% exactly, or is it more like 75% corn?
We're very heavy on our corn. We're over 80% corn in our mash bill. So, and then we're using equal parts malted barley and rye to finish off the mash bill. But what that really does, I believe, is you can really taste the corn, and especially as you get older and that wood softens out a little bit, that grain, that corn grain really comes out in just a beautiful expression for it.
Well, I strongly suggest that we apply some quality control on what you're saying, and
I agree.
We taste a little bit. But then we've got the 8, the 12, the barrel select.
Yes.
What's the right way if there is one?
The right way, I would say, is to go from 8, then to the 12 in the barrel select. And that's really just because of age and that journey I was telling you about. So the idea of what happens to the whiskey through age, that means you can start at the beginning and end at the final expression in a way that really takes you on a journey through the whiskey.
Then let's have a bit of this 8.
All right, fantastic. So our number 8 is a 5 to 7 year old whiskey. Now, as opposed to putting a, there you go.
Thanks.
I'll have to try some as well. Like you said, always quality control. So the number 8 is 5 to 7 years old. And what it really does, it's our 80 proof whiskey. That's the original recipe that came from George. And that 80 proof whiskey at 5 to 7 years old, you really get, it's still about the charred oak barrel at this point. I mean, I always tell people this is still the down home whiskey. This is the vehicle for anyone that wants to drink whiskey, whether they want to drink it neat or whether they would like to have it with a Coke or whatever it is. There's no wrong way to drink George Dickel.
And there's nothing that hurts the nose.
No. Not at all.
There's no strong ethanol kick there. It's all quite pleasant.
It's very pleasant. You get a lot of those. I feel you get a lot of those very characteristic charred wood notes. You get a lot of vanilla. You get some of the corn still comes back through, and there's a sweetness that's fantastic.
Well,
cheers.
Cheers. It's quite good.
Yes, exactly.
It's quite good.
And it has the right aggression, is like what I like to call it with the whiskey, that everybody wants.
Right,
and yet at the same time,
it's
what you're looking for. But at the same time, that finish is very short, and that's where that sipping whiskey really comes in.